Howdy gang. Today's lesson is a response to an email I got from one of my subscribers regarding how to set the suction for a vacuum. So this video is in response to that. So if you want to know how to tell which pipe is for suction for a vacuum or a skimmer, and you also want to find out if you have a dedicated line for a vacuum in your pool, this video is for you. So let's get going. Okay, so I am at one of my clients' pools, and this is a good example for this lesson. So if you notice, okay, this is the equipment. They've got a sand filter. That's not really relevant right now. But this is their pump, and this is the suction side of the pump. You notice where the pipe goes in? We call that the low side of the pump. So that's where the water gets sucked out of the pool. These two pipes are suction pipes. The water will be sucked out of the pool when the pump's running. And then the high side right here, this is after the water has passed through this basket and caught any excess debris, and then it goes up through this pipe and then into the filter, gets filtered and back into the pool. So this is the high side, and this is the low side of the pump. So this is the suction side, and this is the side where we're concerned about and what our lesson is about. So first thing is, you notice there's two pipes, okay? Now I know this for a fact, so I know what this pool is, but these again are the suction pipes. One of these pipes we can pretty much be sure of is for the skimmer. So water gets sucked from the skimmer. And if you remember my lessons on knowing your pool and skimmers and things like that and the suction, you'll know that the skimmer is one of those places where water comes from the pool into the pump. The other one, and I know this for a fact, is a dedicated vacuum line, and I'll show you that and show you how to determine that. But the thing and again, this is a standard pool. There's no jacuzzi, so there's no suction valves for the jacuzzi. So we're dealing just with a standard pool with two pipes that suck, okay? Sometimes if this pipe doesn't have a dedicated vacuum line, you might have an in-floor cleaning system, which is like pop-ups, and those little heads pop up on the bottom of the pool. And there's usually a suction line to a in-ground somewhere by the deck of your pool, some kind of basket that has suction on it too. So this, again, we're going to go determine about what these lines are for. Okay, so we're going to see, is there truly a dedicated vacuum line? So that's one of the things you want to discover first. So I'm going to walk over to the pool. Thankfully, it's very close. And if your pool has a dedicated vacuum line, okay, you'll be able to see it because there'll be a port on the side of the pool. And if you notice, as I walk over here, this one does have a vacuum. This vacuum stays in the pool, which is my recommendation. There is the port right there, and the hose for the vacuum goes right in there, okay? So I know that those two suction pipes, one goes to that dedicated line, and the other goes to the skimmer. And again, be careful if you open the skimmer basket that you don't get that you check the webbing and things like that, so you don't get bit by a critter. And inside the skimmer, you notice there's, I don't know if you can see, there's two holes. One of those holes is the pipe that goes to the pump, okay, that we saw earlier in the video. The other one is probably one of the dumbest engineering creations I've ever seen. It's a pipe that goes down into the floor drain. You can see down in the middle of the pool over there. See that floor drain? Okay, right there. That's theoretically, there's a thing called a diverter that goes in here, and it's supposed to divert some of the suction that comes from here, from the skimmer, and it diverts it to that pipe that's theoretically then sucks water off the bottom of the pool, and it can actually help, you know, clean what's down in the bottom of the pool. The problem with that is water seeks the path of the least resistance, and that means that because that water is having to go up from that deep in the pool, it doesn't create enough suction to really pull it, so you end up, you know, with a worthless thing. So that hole is kind of worthless. Anyway, those are basically your two suction lines. Now we're going to go back and figure out which line is for which. Okay, so I'm back at the equipment, and I want you to note this valve. This is called a Jandy valve, but they're very common. This is probably what's on your pool. Some pools have, you know, old valves like that, and I'm not dealing with that today. Or they have like toggle valves, but we're going to deal with a Jandy valve. I want you to notice something. This is can get confusing. People always think that this part of the valve is the off side, but if you look at it, you see that tab right there? If you look very carefully at it, it has the word off. So that is the off side. So let's say I want to shut the suction off to this side of that pipe. The more I turn it over to this side, I might have to loosen this up. The more I turn it, the more I shut the suction to that pipe off. If I completely put it straight in line with it, then I've shut off the suction to that for good, or 100%. And same thing the other side. If I want to shut it off over here, I can turn it all the way to there. A lot of these have a little tab. If you notice, you see that little, see this little thing right here? That stops it from going too far, and that's kind of a nice thing. If it's that's up to your the builder to do that right. But again, we want to determine which of these pipes goes to which. The best way to do that is to first of all fire up the system. So again, I got a time clock. This is a older one. I just flip it and it's running. Now, what I can do is to make this determination, I can just turn the valve all the way. Actually, I'm going to turn it all the way to here because I know which one goes to which, okay? So I've shut the suction off to this pipe, all right? And I'm going to go, okay, the best way to check is to go from the skimmer and go, which one's the skimmer? Once you identify the skimmer, you can identify, you know, the other one is the vacuum. So I'm going to go over here to my skimmer. I'm going to look at it, okay? And I notice that there's water moving, right? You can see stuff moving in there. That tells me I've got suction going in there, and I'm going to put my hand down there. And be very careful when you put your hand down there. Just don't cover it, but you can gently go down there and kind of feel with your fingers, like I'm doing right now, okay? And I can feel suction, and it's coming from this pipe right here, okay? So that tells me that that pipe is suction for the skimmer, which means, you guessed it, the other pipe is the suction for the vacuum, okay? So that's how I determine which pipe goes to which. I would recommend, if you don't memorize things well, getting an indelible ink marker and writing that down. So maybe over here, again, remember this is the one that's fully open and that's the skimmer. So just write it with an indelible ink marker, skim, right? So you know that it says the skimmer. And then over here you can write vac, V-A-C, so you know that's your vacuum line. Now, when it comes to your vacuum, usually if you have a stay in the pool vacuum like the one that's there, and I'll do actually a video series on vacuums, especially to tell you which is my favorite, because there's some really bad ones out there, and there's one or two extremely good ones. So most vacuums, when you have a stay in the pool vacuum, are going to need about 2/3 of the suction dedicated to the vacuum line. And then the other will be the skimmer, and that's plenty. So I want you to listen though. This is kind of helpful too. If you listen to the pump, I'm going to keep closing off the suction side to the skimmer, and you'll hear it change a little bit. Hear that? Okay, so that's telling me I've got a lot of suction there. It's probably too much. So I usually go, and some of these have a little notch, but this one doesn't. And I just kind of go to about 2/3 closed to 3/4 closed till I hear that sound, and then I back off a tick or two. And these make these little notches, like as you turn it, it kind of goes clink, clink, clink. So I just backed it off a couple ticks, okay? And then I go back and look at the pool, you'll notice that the vacuum is doing its thing, right? If I have too much suction on the vacuum, it could damage the vacuum, or it can make it climb the walls and come out of the pool and then suck air. And you'll also notice, see that little wonderful whirlpool going there? I still have plenty of suction to the skimmer, okay? Now, if you don't have a stay in the pool vacuum, and you have a manual vacuum that you have a hose that you have to put in the pool, put the vacuum head on your pole, and then stick it in there, you pretty much use it the same way you would a regular vacuum. First and foremost, make sure your equipment is off, okay? So you would shut your equipment off first, okay? Then you would come over to that port, if you've identified a dedicated port on the side of your pool, right? And most of them have a little flap. This one doesn't because it's a little bit older, but most of them have a little flap. And if the equipment's running, there's so much suction on that flap, you're never going to be able to get it open. So make sure that the equipment is off. You're going to come over here with your vacuum head for your pole and your hose, and you're going to maybe use a screwdriver and just pop the cover open, right? It's a spring-loaded cover. And then you want to stick your hose, which should be submerged and full of water, one end into that port, okay? Then the other end attaches to your vacuum head, which should stay in the water, right? So it should stay in the water. Remember, you've already identified which pipe sucks for your vacuum, right? So you're coming back here, you're gonna fire your system back up, right? And I would fire it up just like this without adjusting the valve yet. So that way, if there's any air in the line, it can bleed it off, okay, without making your pump lose its prime. Then what I'm going to do, once I know that everything's good and the air is out of the hose and the vacuum head is in the pool, then again, if this was my skimmer line and this was my vacuum line, okay, I'm going to close off my skimmer line. Remember that little off tab by turning it. And when you use a manual vacuum that attaches to your pole, you want to have full suction to that vacuum head. So you would do that. Okay, and again, you might hear a change in the tone, but you might not. But that's where you're going to get 100% suction to that vacuum hose, and then you can go vacuum your pool. Once you're done, leave the vacuum head in the pool, reset the suction back to where you want it. And my thought is, again, if you don't have a dedicated line, or if you have a dedicated line but you don't have a stay in the pool vacuum, you're probably going to want to put most of the suction to the skimmer, because once that port closes, it's not going to do any good because there's not going to be any water sucking through that port. Also, if that port doesn't have a cover and your system's running and you have a lot of suction to that dedicated line and a child gets up against it, it can really hurt them by sucking in their skin or whatever, and it could be quite dangerous. So you want to make sure that, you know, if that has a port, that the flap closes, you're not leaving a vacuum in the pool. So that's pretty much how you do it. Then once you vacuum the pool again, like I said, reset everything and you should be good to go. Don't have a dedicated line to a vacuum like this pool does, then you're going to utilize the skimmer suction port for your manual vacuum hose. Again, all you're going to do is you're going to turn your system off, because again, you've identified what each suction pipe is for. You're going to, again, keep your system off. You're going to take your manual vacuum head, stick it on the end of your pole, attach one end of the vacuum hose to it. You're going to submerge that, and then you're going to submerge the entire hose to make sure it fills up with water. And then you're going to take the other end of the hose and run it. I'm going to go upside down here. See that opening right there? You're going to run it through that opening and into that hole, the one that creates the suction, and we know that it's the one on this side, right? Plug that straight into that hole, go back to your equipment, fire it up, and then adjust your valve so the suction is going 100% to the skimmer. Then you can vacuum your pool, and then when you're done, all right, you probably, again, because there's so much suction, you might not want to just rip that thing out of there because it's got a lot of suction. So go back and either shut the system off or adjust the valve back to where you don't have as much suction to the skimmer so you can get that hose free, and then you're good to go. One more important note: once you're done vacuuming your pool, especially if you vacuumed up debris, leaves, things like that, you're going to want to come over here, shut the system off after you've done adjusted all your valves back to where they're supposed to be, and you're going to want to empty this pump basket, because that's where your larger debris is going to be. And then if you have a filter that can be backwashed, you might want to backwash your filter as well, because if you vacuum dirt up. If you do have a dedicated vacuum line, even if you don't, if you have a skimmer line, I would highly recommend putting a stay in the pool vacuum into your pool. And I'll do a series on stay in the pool vacuums and pop-up systems in the very near future, so stay tuned. So there it is, folks. That's how you identify the suction pipes on your pool system, and again, to determine where the suction or where the water is being sucked from, and also how to adjust the valves, and also how to get the vacuum suction and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully this video made sense. I know it's a little bit tricky because there's a lot of little things, right? And it's kind of like you gotta look back and forth, go, okay, if it's this, it's this, but it's not really that hard. So just watch this video again if you need to. And if you have any questions, again, you can always write them in the comments below, or you can email me directly at kennypoolschool@gmail.com. Again, it's gonna come right across the screen here, kennypoolschool@gmail.com. Again, I hope this video helps, and I would like to encourage you to please like and share this video with your friends and encourage them to subscribe to this channel. Hopefully they will be informed and empowered to take care of their own pool and save a bunch of money as well. So I hope this video has helped you. Please stay in touch. Please keep watching. And again, even though it's cooling off and the swimming season is ending, you still have kids, it's still pools. So have fun, be safe, and always, always, always watch your kids around water. I'll see you next time.